everybody, to the SPL on Monday. I am Valdez. With me is Wolf once again with our really flattering picture. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And I'm excited to see MVP Chickamauga. It's their second match here in round 2. They brought SKT to an ace match in their previous series. And here's CJantis, their opponents. They had a terrible round 1. And, one of the easier opponents potentially here for MVP, the only team that, was lower than CJantis in the previous round. So both these teams are the weaker rounds from round 1, but will they be able to do better in round 2? That's kind of the story here.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to learn a lot today about, some of these newer players coming out that we didn't see much of in round number 1, being tested in round number 2. Perhaps because their teammates weren't working out here. Hush we see here and Blaze, I don't think we even saw once in round number 1. So it's going to be a little bit of a treat here to start off, see what these two players have been up to.
Yeah, the story that, has been discussed across the globe over the past few weeks is where is Byung, what's happened to him. The official post is that he has health reasons, but him disappearing from CJantis along with Coach Park really leaves several holes. As metaphorically shown like on the screen there, in their roster, those empty chairs were the chairs of two people that held this team together, in Coach Park and Byung's case for several years, and now they're gone, and can CJ recover?
Yeah, you see Seed there also on the left, now one of the coaches for MVP, starting to move more into a coaching role. The more and more we saw him, he wasn't really having too many results, and I do understand that as one of the more experienced and older players. Same thing out of Sky High for CJantis, moving more to that coaching role. So we're seeing kind of the legacy, the older players move up, and the newer, younger players with more potential coming in and, trying to fill that old role.
Yeah, that's definitely what we see here. Taking a look at where we are here after round number, this is round 2, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, not round 1.
Yeah, I was confused, so I was like, no. But looking at where we are here in round 2 currently, MVP only having the -1 indicator point from that loss to SKT, but SKT doesn't get the easiest start either because they had to win that in the ace match there. In our winners ranking, looking at players that we could have today, the sole representative of these two first starting teams is Biel, who's currently at 5-2.
Yeah, he's up there. I mean, Hero has been playing every day as well, but also not having the results that we expected of him. I think he was the most winning Protoss of last season, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. Him and SOS. Or was that the season before?
Well, they tied in the season before, and I think in last season he was still the most winning Protoss.
Yeah,
Protoss, yeah. They were like the most winning players, and then he was the most winning Protoss.
Yeah, so Hero not having the same results. We will see him again today as we move into our matchup here. The players that we will see, Hush versus Blaze to start. Hero versus Ryung, who actually took out, I think it was Sue from SKT the last time around. Then we go to Gumio versus Biel and Pet versus Bunny to end it.
Yeah, Bunny and Pet should be a matchup that, if we get to it, will be pretty close. I think it'll be a fun one to watch. Bunny just dropping out of Code S just last week, and Pet, someone we've seen since the very beginning of Starcraft 2, but hasn't been fielded very often, and we've kind of taken a chance on him here today in CJ. As I mentioned, one of the easier opponents for MVP right now is they were the 6th and 7th place teams of round 1.
Yeah, and the other story here is that Gumio winning last time up against SKT, up against Myungshik, in fact. So coming back here, he's going to have a harder opponent in Biel, I believe. But again, Myungshik is getting better and better the more we see him here out in Korea, especially part of SKT. So Gumio could finally be moving into that role as MVP's ace, where they really want him to be. And I think that could be a really interesting matchup too, game number 3.
Now, just to mention this very briefly before we go into our matches, there is a new Kespa English Twitter, Kespa EN. It is not as updated quite as regularly as the Kespa Twitter, but it usually does kind of post translation of whatever Kespa is posting. But the key thing to note about that for StarCraft 2 in particular is that they do post polls that you guys can vote for to see which team you think is going to win every day, and I check those out every day, so just keep that in mind. For this match in particular, CJantis heavily favored. Now here's our first match, Blaze versus Hush. Both these players with horrible records in 2016.
I said that I don't think we saw him for round number 1, and it looks like he's played 3 matches, so that is my mistake, but that also kind of leads into what I'm saying as well, where it's like, it feels like we haven't seen him because every time he comes up here, he does get crushed and loses the game. So definitely going to be, well, it's going to be one of these players' first win tonight, so that'll be good for either of these players.
Sure. And we don't mean to be too critical, but when you're 0-3 and 0-4 respectively, as these two players are, it means you've been fielded consistently enough. That means you're fielded in half of the games in a round, and you lost none of them, or won none of them.
Yeah.
By the way, Team Foreigner for the win.
Yeah, Team Foreigner on the same exact consistency here. I think we had all the same exact predictions last week, rather, and we're all on the same page here, wanting Hush to win. A couple of the Korean casters do go for Blaze, but let's see how it's going to go down here in game number 1, Blaze versus Hush. Well, up here in the top left, the red Protoss player, it is Blaze.
And down to the bottom left, in blue for CJ, it is his opponent, Hush. For some reason I wanted to say Byung there, I had to stop myself. That was weird. Hush, let's talk a little about him for a while. Both these players actually have a long-standing history in StarCraft 2, even though they haven't been as successful as some of their teammates in recent, contemporary StarCraft 2 history. Hush is the king practice partner, you know, one of those practice bourgeois, as they're often called. Thanks for coming down to the studio, by the way. Practice bourgeois being the type of player who everyone thanks him in every interview. Like, okay, he taught us, you know, his Brielle's like, I know he's a Protoss, but he was like, this is the weakness of Protoss in this moment, and when you play ZVP, you can learn this thing, and this is the time when you attack. You know, Hero learned a lot from him, spoke very highly of him, and he was the king of PvP in the past, especially 2 seasons ago. But in recent times, he has not been as successful. And in the past, 2 seasons ago when he was the king of PvP, he was being fielded only for PvP on Protoss maps. But now I think he's being fielded because, you know, they lost Byung and their team's looking a bit weaker these days.
They're looking for another number 4. You know, they always had to rely on Hero and Byung to carry the team, essentially get to the ace match, and then one of those two would play in the ace match too and try to win. And Byung would sometimes win a game here and there, but he was pretty inconsistent, but he was better than the rest of them, you know? And now they're really looking for someone extra. Bunny and Hush definitely on board, trying to get that permanent spot on the roster, but CJ has definitely been playing around a bit, trying to find someone extra to replace that role, as you were saying. And Hush, I mean, we were talking about how he's not really come up to bat so far and done a good job. I mean, he's lost 4 games so far, but I think it does go back to the map pool as well. I don't feel like there's any one map that's like, oh, we got to send a Protoss out on this map, you know, 100%. Like, I think we used to have like Deadpool, or it wasn't Deadpool, Deathwing, and what was it called? That map, you know what I'm talking about? The big 4-player map.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's just like in recent times, that vocabulary word was taken out of my brain and replaced with a couple of other ones. Deathwing and Deadpool. I don't know why
I remember it.
Anyway. It might have been Deadwing.
Deadwing. I think it was Deadwing. Yeah, that's right.
That was like a big Protoss map. You see a lot of Protosses on that one. Very Turtley style, big map. Just wait it out, you know, get that death ball, Heart of the Swarm, etc., etc. But you don't really see that all that much. And Hush has definitely been struggling a bit.
Well, getting into this game a bit more, I'll talk more about Blaze if we have another bit of downtime, because he has a long-standing history as well, especially in team leagues. We have a Stalker opening versus an Adept opening. It's going to be Adepts for Blaze, and Hush is going to be going for Stalkers. 2 Sentries added as well afterwards to try to block Scouts. Well, definitely didn't commit to it and may even lose that expensive Sentry. That is huge. That's 100 gas down the drain. That's a big investment wasted. And the Adepts should be able to escape here. Well, maybe not, actually. It's going to be tough.
Stalker's going to chase after the Shade. He's forced to cancel it here, and he's just going to try to go for a last-minute scout. Not going to see all too much outside of the robotics facility that is coming down here. So he essentially does get that scout that he wanted while also getting the sentry.
It looks like it might have just barely been out of his vision even. So it's like a commitment to kill a sentry. And
yeah, that actually is. You're right. So he didn't see that.
Yeah, it's like he killed a sentry and he almost escaped. But good reaction by Hush, who will now actually sneak a probe in and see that Stargate. No doubt he's going to be able to commit to that one. Probes can't even stop him. He will see that Stargate. So I like Hush's position here, but he's going to have to deal with this pressure with his Nexus coming up here. He needs a pylon set up.
Yeah, he needs another pylon. This one at the front is going to be taken out, and it's 3 Stalkers and 2 Sentries versus 4 Stalkers with an Oracle coming towards the main. It looks like the Mothership Core is going to stay in there for that. He did get the Scout, but not too much energy here. Going to commit to 1 overcharge, but doesn't have another, and this Oracle's getting a bunch of kills.
Yeah, that pylon in position for the top, but not for the bottom. And during all of this, more Stalkers coming up here at the front. I feel like if he combined the Oracle with this, he could definitely have broken it. But regardless, without the Oracle even, he's going to kill another Sentry here. He's targeting it down. Here comes the Mothership Core very late. Good force field, going to lock 2 of these Stalkers in, but he may just go up the ramp here. No, just going to go around the back and continue trading.
Just going to continue trading. Really nice job here by Blaze, just picking apart Hush in 2 different directions. Just having that better count of Stalkers now, doing that damage behind this mineral line. It's going to be a struggle here for Hush to try to take out this army. Actually switching targets there a little bit too early and should lose this fight. It's going to be very close.
Yeah, it looks like he just barely will, but still, with all these Stalkers having to leave the main base, more damage done with this Oracle. 9 kills, 10 kills in total now. And this is just an incredible position here for Blaze. In fact, this is nearly game over. Hush may have a mind to type GG here. Look, 13 workers down, 2 base versus 2 base, and the only advantage he had was his Stalker lead once that warping happened, but then with the next follow-up attack, he ended up losing that as well. So
yeah, and he had this slightly faster Nexus, but way too much damage was done here. And now down 20 supply in a mirror matchup at only 5 minutes into the game. Definitely behind this Hush. He's going to have to somehow bring it back here. You can see he doesn't even have enough minerals and gas to really even use that robotics facility that he did make early on. In fact, Blaze is going to get the first Immortal in this game.
Yep. Down goes the Observer as well for Hush, removing all sort of vision from the Natural. So not like that's going to give him too much of an information about what's coming next, but he's not going to see these gateways being added. It could actually just be a follow-up attack. Look, he canceled that Immortal, made a Warp Prism afterwards, and actually just move across the map with these extra gateways, set up phase mode on the Warp Prism, and try to kill Hush. He knows he has that much of a lead, and this is almost unheard of in PvP, actually, just walking across the map and kill your opponent when you're ahead, because it's so easy to defend in Pro versus Pro, but again, it just speaks volumes as to how ahead Blaze is right now in this game.
Yeah, look at Hush's army, a puny 3 Stalkers and a Sentry. Looks like he's got the Mothership Core as well. He's going to have the Observer sniped again. But with this Immortal and just the count of units that Blaze does have, he should be able to break this. Overcharge is going to push him back for now.
Yeah, once that Warp Prism gets across, he will have 3 warp-ins extra from these gateways to continue to just warp in. So 4 in total, 4 Stalkers at a time coming in now, 11 to 3. There's a tag on this army as well, giving him extra vision, and this pylon's not going to last very long. Not going to be a very useful overcharge location.
Does get an Immortal out here, and the force fields are not terrible. Look at this, really nice micro there in the Warp Prism. Just going to save those Stalkers and warp in another round here. But the pylon does survive, and there is another pylon. So there's a small chance that he holds here. But I mean, 3rd base coming up, Twilight Council tech out here. Gonna focus down that Mothership Core.
Really good force field as well to isolate the sentries. He also snipes that Mothership Core, as you mentioned. And this should be it, I think. Ooh. Look, this Immortal does barrier here, very nicely done. But with the Warp Prism here to continue to help Micro, this should actually end the game.
Yeah, nicely done here. Gonna focus down that last Immortal warp in, and GG! Blaze is gonna take game number 1.
Blaze, man, the old school Startail sniper player. Back then, using the ID Panic, is now one of the big heavy hitters here for MVP. You know, he does decently well in qualifiers. He's one of the more consistent players, despite the fact that he's what, 0-3 or was until just now. I think it's 1-3 now in Pro League. They fielded him consistently 3 times last round. Was in Code A, was in Code S last season. And a big win here to take a PvP off of Hush.
Yeah, and just to take a game off of CJ too. I mean, we were talking about CJ and how they're not doing so well, but compared to MVP, they did a bit better for sure. I mean, they didn't take nearly as many staggering losses, not that many 0-3s, right? But taking a win and making sure that CJ can't just 3-0 them, essentially by having Hush win, and then you have Hero and Biel to come up next, and in favorable matchups for them. It's pretty nice to get that win for MVP. It gives them a lot of life in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a series that they could absolutely win. It's not going to be easy, but hey, they nearly beat SKT last week. So
yeah,
anything is possible. That continues to be the case in Pro League. No matter what you think, no matter what matchups you look at, no matter how many times we see 7-0 predictions from the commentators, anything could happen.
There's a reason why, like, the winning commentator is always at like 70%, 71% about, because 30% of the time, even though for most of the time, right, or voting for the